Hello everyone. We're continuing in C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity, and we're now in the second portion of the book, which was What Christians Believe. And Lewis addresses the stumbling block that he faced in belief, in being an atheist to believing in God. This is what he says, or how he explains it. My argument against God was that the universe seems so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing this universe with when I called it unjust? If the whole show was bad and senseless from A to Z, so to speak, why did I, who was supposed to be part of the show, find myself in such violent reaction against it? A man feels wet when he falls into water, because man is not a water animal. A fish would not feel wet. Of course, I could have given up my idea of justice by saying it was nothing but a private idea of my own. But if I did that, then my argument against God collapsed too. For the argument depended on saying that the world was really unjust, not simply that it did not happen to please my private fancies. Thus, in the very act of trying to prove that God did not exist, in other words, that the whole of reality was senseless, I found I was forced to assume that one part of reality, namely my idea of justice, was full of sense. Consequently, atheism turned out to be too simple. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should never have found out that it has no meaning, just as if there were no light in the universe, and therefore no creatures with eyes, we should never know it was dark. Dark would be without meaning. Very well then, atheism is too simple, and I will tell you another view that is also too simple. It is the view I call Christianity and water. The view which simply says that there is a good God in heaven and everything is all right, leaving out all the difficult and terrible doctrines about sin and hell and the devil and the redemption. Both these are boys' philosophies. It is no good asking for a simple religion. After all, real things are not simple. They look simple, but they are not. He says the problem is not simple, and the answer is not going to be simple either. What is the problem? A universe that contains much that is obviously bad and apparently meaningless, but containing creatures like ourselves who know that it is bad and meaningless. There are only two views that face all the facts. One is the Christian view, that this is a good world that has gone wrong, but still retains the memory of what it ought to have been. The other is the view called dualism. Dualism means the belief that there are two equal and independent powers at the back of everything, one of them good and the other bad, and that this universe is the battlefield in which they fight out an endless war. I personally think that next to Christianity, dualism is the manliest and most sensible creed on the market, but it has a catch in it. The two powers, or spirits, or gods, the good one and the bad one, are supposed to be quite independent. They both existed from all eternity. Neither of them made the other. Neither of them has any more right than the other to call itself God. Each, presumably, thinks it is good and thinks the other bad. One of them likes hatred and cruelty, and the other likes love and mercy, and each backs its own view. Now, what do we mean when we call one of them the good power and the other the bad power? Either we are merely saying that we happen to prefer the one to the other, like preferring beer to cider, or else we are saying that, whatever the two powers think about it, and whichever we humans at the moment happen to like, one of them is actually wrong, actually mistaken, in regarding itself as good. Now, if we mean merely that we happen to prefer the first, then we must give up talking about good and evil at all. For good means what you ought to prefer, quite regardless of what you happen to like at any given moment. If being good meant simply joining the side you happen to fancy for no real reason, then good would not deserve to be called good. So, we must mean that one of the two powers is actually wrong and the other actually right. But the moment you say that, you are putting into the universe a third thing in addition to the two powers. Some law or standard or rule of good which one of the powers conforms to and the other fails to conform to. But since the two powers are judged by this standard, then this standard or being who made this standard is farther back and higher up than either of them, and he will be the real God. In fact, what we meant by calling them good and bad turns out to be that one of them is in a right relationship to the real ultimate God, and the other is in a wrong relationship to him. Now Lewis sums up what he considers to be the position or state of things as they are now. But I freely admit that real Christianity, as distinct from Christianity and water, goes much nearer to dualism than people think. One of the things that surprised me when I first read the New Testament seriously was that it talks so much about a dark power in the universe, a mighty evil spirit who was held to be the power behind death and disease and sin. The difference is that Christianity thinks this dark power was created by God and was good when he was created and went bad or went wrong. Christianity agrees with dualism that this universe is at war, but it does not think this is a war between independent powers. It thinks it is a civil war, a rebellion, and that we are living in a part of the universe occupied by the rebel. Enemy-occupied territory. That is what this world is. Christianity is the story of how the rightful king has landed, you might say landed in disguise, and is calling us to take part in a great campaign of sabotage. Now, many of our ex-witness audience have swung to atheism upon leaving the Watchtower. And can I just suggest, before you just settle in that area, that you give due consideration to Christianity as presented by Christians or Christendom, rather than what you're told they believe by Jehovah's Witnesses. The Watchtower has made every effort to make Christians look shallow or foolish. And so I think you deserve it. You deserve to give it a chance, a real chance, by looking at what Christians actually say they believe and what they teach. Don't think that the Watchtower is faithfully presenting the Christian beliefs. You don't trust them in a lot of other areas. Don't trust them in that one. Next, we're going to look at the claims that Jesus made, the man Jesus, the claims that he made while on the earth, and what are we to make of them. I'm going to link to this video, two videos. One is called The Old Testament Was the Bible of Jesus and the Apostles, and inspired our concepts of social justice. That was one that David did, featuring Walter Rauschenbusch, the long name. And the second one is one video that David did, which was Alistair McGrath, who also was an atheist and became a Christian. And that one is titled Doubt That God is Present in Your Life, Doubt He Cares, Even Exists. So that's his argumentation of what he had to think about in his atheistic position.